Elena Vasquez sat in her chair at the Galactic Council and tried not to show her anger. The giant room was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like tall birds, others like walking crystals, and a few resembled giant insects. They all spoke in calm voices about peace and understanding. They all ignored the blood on human hands. For 50 years, humans had served the galaxy as peacekeepers. When two species wanted to fight, humans stood between them. When pirates attacked trade ships, humans died stopping them. When wars broke out, humans bled while aliens talked about solutions. The latest crisis was the Zephyrian-Caltech border dispute. Both alien races claimed the same star systems. Both had been fighting for 3 years, and both had been killing humans who tried to keep them apart. "The situation requires careful thought," said Chancellor Thexmore, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. "We cannot rush to judgment." Elena wanted to scream. 2 days ago, Zephyrian raiders had attacked Outpost 7. 43 humans had died defending it. The raiders took nothing. They killed humans just because they could. "Chancellor," Elena said, standing up, "my people are dying. We need permission to fight back." The room fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes looked at her. Some showed pity. Others showed disgust. Elena had seen those looks many times before. "Ambassador Vasquez," Chancellor Thexmore said in his patient voice, "violence only creates more violence. Humans must learn restraint. This is why you joined our council." Elena sat down. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from holding back her rage. Around her, other aliens nodded in agreement. They all thought humans were too violent, too quick to fight. They used humans to do their dirty work, then lectured them about peace. The meeting continued for 6 hours. They talked about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. They discussed new regulations for space travel. They said nothing about the humans who died every day keeping their galaxy safe. When the session ended, Elena walked to her private office. Her assistant, a young man named David, was waiting with reports. His face was pale. "More attacks?" Elena asked. David nodded. 17 colonies hit in the last week. The Caltech are using new weapons. Our shields can't stop them. Elena looked at the casualty reports. Names and faces of people she had known. Soldiers who had families back on Earth. Scientists who had joined the peacekeeping force to help build a better galaxy. All dead. "What does the council say?" she asked. "They're forming a new committee to study the situation," David said. "It will report back in 6 months." 6 months. Elena thought about how many humans would die in 6 months. How many families would lose fathers and mothers and children. How many graves would be dug on distant worlds. The Zephyrians sent another message, David continued. "They say humans are weak. They say we hide behind the council's rules because we're afraid to fight." Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Afraid to fight? Humans had been fighting for thousands of years before they met aliens. They had fought each other with sticks and stones, then with guns and bombs, then with spaceships and energy weapons. They had almost destroyed their own planet with war. That was why the Galaxy Council had been so interested in them. Humans were good at war, too good. When Earth finally developed faster than light travel, the galaxy had been watching. They had seen human history. They knew what humans could do, so they made a deal. Humans could join galactic civilization, but only if they gave up war. They would serve as peacekeepers instead. They would protect others instead of fighting each other. It seemed like a good trade. For 50 years it had worked. Humans spread across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors. They built bases on dangerous worlds. They patrolled shipping routes where pirates hid. They stood between enemies who wanted to kill each other. The galaxy grew peaceful. Trade flourished. Art and science advanced. Different species learned to work together. It was everything the Council had promised, but the price was always paid in human blood. Elena walked to her window and looked out at the capital city of the galaxy. Millions of beings lived here in peace. They built beautiful buildings and created wonderful art. They had families and dreams and hopes for the future. None of them ever volunteered to be peacekeepers. Her computer chimed with a new message. Elena hoped it was good news for once. Instead, she found a video from Captain Martinez on the distant world of Kepler Prime. "Ambassador," the captain said. His uniform was torn and bloody. Behind him, Elena could see smoke rising from burning buildings. "The Zephyrians hit us again. They used civilian ships to get past our sensors. We couldn't shoot them down without killing innocents." The captain paused and wiped blood from his face. "They took the colony's children, Ambassador. 300 kids. They say they'll kill them unless we withdraw from the system. Elena closed her eyes. She had seen this before. Aliens would use human morality against them. They knew humans would not sacrifice innocents to win battles, so they put innocents in danger and watched humans die trying to save them. What are your orders? Captain Martinez asked. Elena thought about the Galactic Council's rules. No violence except in direct self-defense. No attacks on civilian targets. No pursuit into neutral space. Rules that sounded noble but got humans killed. She thought about calling the council for help. They would form another committee. They would write another strongly worded letter. They would do nothing useful while children died and humans bled. Hold position, Captain, she said finally. Help is coming. But Elena knew no help was coming. The council would debate while children were murdered. They would talk about peaceful solutions while humans were forced to choose between their duty and their conscience. Elena opened her desk drawer and looked at the small device inside. It was a quantum communicator, linked directly to Earth. She was supposed to use it only for extreme emergencies. She thought this qualified. Elena picked up the device and sent a message to Earth's president. It was short and simple. Request immediate recall of all peacekeeping forces. Effective immediately. Then she sent a second message to every human commander in the galaxy. Stand down. Prepare for evacuation. Elena sat back in her chair and smiled for the first time in months. Tomorrow, the galaxy would wake up to find its peacekeepers gone. Tomorrow, they would learn what peace really cost. She wondered how long it would take them to realize their mistake. How long before they understood that humans had not been the problem. Humans had been the solution, and now they were leaving. Chancellor Thexmore woke up to the sound of his emergency alarm. The blue alien rolled out of bed and activated his communication device. His aide's voice was panicked. Chancellor, you need to see the morning reports immediately. Thexmore hurried to his office in the council building. On his desk were dozens of reports from across the galaxy. He read the first one and felt his foreheart skip a beat. All human peacekeeping forces have withdrawn from the Zephyrian-Calthek border zone. No explanation given. The second report was worse. Human garrison on Antares base evacuated overnight. Station abandoned. The third. Human patrol fleet in Sector 7 has disappeared. All ships departed without warning. Thexmore kept reading. The reports came from every corner of the galaxy. In less than 12 hours, every human military unit had vanished. Not destroyed, not captured, just gone. His aide rushed into the office. Chancellor Ambassador Vasquez is requesting to address the council immediately. Get her here now, Thexmore said. Elena arrived within minutes. She looked calm, even peaceful. Behind her walked David, carrying a small bag. They both wore simple civilian clothes instead of their official uniforms. Ambassador, what is the meaning of this? Thexmore demanded. I'm resigning my position, Elena said. Effective immediately. She placed her ambassador's badge on his desk. The small metal disc seemed to weigh more than a mountain. You cannot simply withdraw your forces without council approval, Thexmore said. We just did, Elena replied, and we're not asking for approval anymore. Thexmore activated the emergency session alarm. Within an hour, the council chamber was full. Representatives from 200 species demanded answers. Elena stood at the center podium and looked at them all. For 50 years, humans have served this council, she began. Her voice was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. We have bled for your peace. We have died for your safety. We have watched our children sacrifice their lives while you debated the value of those lives. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens shouted about duty and honor. Others demanded she explain the withdrawal. Elena waited for them to quiet down. Yesterday, Zephyrian raiders kidnapped 300 human children. She continued. Your response was to schedule a fact-finding committee for next month. Last week, 17 human colonies were attacked. Your response was another strongly worded resolution. That is how civilization works, called out Senator Crickstall, a reptilian alien from the hegemony. We solve problems with words, not weapons. Elena smiled coldly. Then solve this problem with words, Senator. Because humanity is done solving your problems with our blood. She turned to address the entire chamber. We are withdrawing from all Galactic Council operations. Every human peacekeeper, every human base, every human ship involved in keeping your galaxy safe. They're all going home. The chamber fell silent. Elena could see the shock on alien faces. They had never imagined humans would simply leave. "This is impossible," Chancellor Thexmore said. "Humans need galactic civilization. You depend on our technology, our trade routes, our protection." "Do we?" Elena asked. "We'll find out." She walked toward the exit. David followed, still carrying their bag. At the door, Elena turned back. "Good luck keeping the peace without us," she said. "You're going to need it." The first sign of trouble came within hours. Without human peacekeepers, the Zephyrian-Caltech conflict exploded into open warfare. Zephyrian battle fleets crossed the border and attacked Caltech colonies. Caltech response ships bombed Zephyrian space stations. In one day, more beings died than in the previous year of careful human intervention. The Nexus trade route fell to pirates within a week. The human patrol ships that had protected merchant vessels were gone. Criminal gangs moved in immediately. 3 major shipping companies lost entire fleets. In the Outer Rim, minor disputes that humans had kept from becoming wars suddenly erupted into violence. The crystalline world started shooting at the hive colonies over mining rights. The beast clans began raiding anyone who came near their territory. Other species tried to replace human peacekeepers. The results were disasters. The Altarians sent a peace fleet to stop a war between 2 minor species. When the first Altarian ship took casualties, the entire fleet surrendered and flew home. Altarians were natural diplomats, but they had no stomach for violence. The Vorthon tried to negotiate with pirates threatening a space station. The pirates ignored their beautiful speeches and took their ships. Crystalline beings who spoke in music and poetry could not intimidate anyone. The hegemony sent military ships to restore order in 3 systems. They were too aggressive and turned minor conflicts into major wars. They killed more civilians in a month than humans had in 10 years. Chancellor Thexmore called emergency session after emergency session. The council passed resolution after resolution. None of it helped. Words could not stop bullets. Speeches could not protect ships from pirates. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Wars that had been frozen for decades suddenly resumed. Trade routes that had been safe for generations became death traps. Entire sectors descended into chaos. "This is temporary," Thexmore told the council. "Humans will realize they need us and return." But humans did not return. Instead, the borders of human space became harder to cross. Human colonies stopped accepting alien visitors. Human trade ships required military escorts even for friendly species. Senator Krickstahl led a delegation to human space, demanding negotiations. They were turned away at the border by automated defense systems. The message was simple: Galactic Council representatives are not welcome in human territory. They cannot isolate themselves forever, Krickstahl insisted. They need our resources, our knowledge, our markets. But intelligence reports suggested otherwise. Human colonies were becoming self-sufficient faster than anyone thought possible. They were developing new technologies without alien help. They were trading only with each other. More troubling were reports of human military buildup. Colonies that had never hosted anything but peacekeeping forces were suddenly building warships. Human asteroid mines were producing military-grade metals. Human research stations were working on classified projects. What are they planning? Thexmore asked his intelligence chief. Unknown, Chancellor, but they're preparing for something big. The galaxy continued to burn. 6 months after the human withdrawal, 7 major wars were raging. Piracy had increased by 300%. 23 species had requested emergency council intervention. The council had no way to intervene. They had no peacekeepers, no military forces, no way to stop violence except with more words that no one listened to. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council was powerless to keep the peace, and somewhere in human space, Elena Vasquez was probably smiling. Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony 4th Fleet was confident as his ships approached the human colony of New Geneva. His intelligence report said humans were isolated and weak. 6 months without galactic support had surely crippled them. Zektar commanded 200 of the finest warships in the galaxy. Each ship was larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. His fleet could destroy entire planets. The human colony should surrender immediately. New Geneva was a small world on the edge of human space. Before the withdrawal, it had hosted a single peacekeeping base with maybe 12 ships. Now it was supposedly defended by local militia. "Sir, we're detecting ships," his sensor officer reported. "How many?" Zektar asked. I'm not sure, sir. The readings are strange. Zektar looked at his display screen. Instead of normal ship signatures, he saw something that looked like a cloud of insects. Thousands of small contacts moving in patterns that made no sense. Magnify visual, he ordered. The screen showed space filled with tiny ships. Each one was barely larger than a fighter, but there were so many of them they looked like a swarm of metal bees. They moved together in ways that hurt to watch, flowing and shifting like a living thing. This is Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony Fleet. He broadcast to the humans, surrender immediately or face destruction. The human response came from all the small ships at once, thousands of voices speaking as one. This is the new Geneva defense swarm. You are not welcome here. Leave now, Zektar laughed. You think those toys can fight real warships? We do not think, the swarm replied. We know, Zektar ordered the attack. His ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled space between the fleets. The human swarm simply flowed around the attacks like water around stones. Individual ships died, but the swarm kept moving. It split into smaller groups, merged into larger ones, and reformed in new patterns faster than Zektar's computers could track. Then the swarm reached his fleet. The human ships did not fight like any military force Zektar had ever seen. They did not form battle lines or follow standard tactics. Instead, they surrounded each hegemony ship like antibodies attacking a virus. Dozens of small human ships would focus on one target. They would cut through its shields with precision strikes, disable its weapons with surgical attacks, and cripple its engines with coordinated fire. Then they would move to the next target. Zektar watched his mighty fleet being taken apart piece by piece. His ships were larger and stronger, but the humans fought with terrifying efficiency. They wasted no shots, made no mistakes, showed no mercy. Sir, they're not trying to destroy us, his tactical officer reported. They're disabling our ships. The officer was right. Human ships could have blown up hegemony vessels with concentrated fire. Instead, they carefully targeted weapons and engines. They were capturing the fleet, not destroying it. In 17 minutes, it was over. 200 hegemony warships floated dead in space. Their crews were alive but helpless. Not a single human ship had been completely destroyed. A new voice came over the communication channel. This one was different from the swarm's collective speech. It sounded like a single human officer. Admiral Zektar, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the New Geneva Defense Force. Your fleet has been neutralized. You have two choices. Leave immediately in your escape pods or stay and watch us study your ships. This is impossible, Zektar said. Your technology is inferior. Your ships are smaller. Our ships are smaller, Commander Chen agreed. But they think together. Your ships are stronger, but they think alone. In the new galaxy, Admiral, thinking together wins. Zektar and his surviving crew were loaded into escape pods and sent home. As they flew away, they watched the human swarm begin dissecting their ships with mechanical precision. The humans were studying hegemony technology like scientists examining insects. The report of the battle spread across the galaxy in hours. The mighty hegemony fleet had been defeated by what looked like a cloud of gnats. No one could explain how. More disturbing reports followed. Human space had become a fortress. Any ship that approached human territory without permission simply disappeared. Not destroyed, just gone. Some were found days later drifting in space with their crews unharmed, but their ships completely disabled. The humans were not killing attackers. They were teaching them lessons. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy continued falling apart. The Meridian War had killed more beings in 6 months than had died in the previous century. 3 different genocides were happening while the Council debated resolutions. The Zerion Plague was the worst crisis yet. A bioweapon had been released in the Zerion system, and it was spreading to other worlds. Millions were dying every day. The Council's medical experts had no idea how to stop it. Desperate alien governments sent messages to human space begging for help. Humans had always been good at medical research. Maybe they could find a cure. The human response was broadcast across the galaxy. Attention all species. The cure for the Zerion Plague is a simple modification to standard antiviral medication. The formula is attached to this message. We are transmitting it freely to all worlds. The cure worked perfectly. The plague stopped spreading within days. Millions of lives were saved. But then the humans added a second message. We are no longer your doctors. Good luck with the next crisis. Council members tried to contact human leaders directly. They offered trade deals, technology exchanges, and cultural agreements. All messages received the same automated response. The Galactic Council declared human military intervention destabilizing to galactic peace. We are respecting your wishes. Some aliens tried to sneak into human space as refugees or traders. They found human border systems protected by defense networks that seemed to know their intentions before they did. Ships carrying weapons were turned away. Ships carrying civilians were allowed to enter but could never leave. It's like they've built a perfect prison, reported one council spy who had managed to enter human territory. But they're not keeping people in. They're keeping the galaxy out. The spy's report described human colonies that had become completely self-sufficient. They were building new types of ships, developing new weapons, and creating technologies the galaxy had never seen. But they were doing it all in secret. They're not just defending themselves, the spy concluded. They're becoming something new, something we don't understand. Chancellor Thexmore read the reports with growing fear. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained peace by keeping all species dependent on each other. No one had enough military power to threaten anyone else. No one had enough resources to survive alone. Humans were breaking that system. They were proving that isolation could make a species stronger instead of weaker. They were showing that independence was possible. Worse, they were doing it while the rest of the galaxy burned. Every day without human peacekeepers, more wars started. Every week, more species died in conflicts that humans once would have stopped. The galaxy was learning what peace really cost. And the price was higher than anyone had imagined. In human space, Elena Vasquez sat in her new office on Earth and watched the galactic news feeds. Wars raged across hundreds of worlds. Billions of beings suffered while their leaders debated solutions that would never come. She felt no joy watching the chaos. But she felt no guilt either. Humans had tried to save the galaxy for 50 years. They had bled and died for species that called them violent savages. Now the galaxy could save itself, or burn itself to ashes. Either way, it was no longer humanity's problem. Chancellor Thexmore stood before the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 15,000 warships floated in space around the Council's capital world. Representatives from 47 species had contributed vessels to Operation Reconvergence. Today, we restore order to the galaxy, Thexmore announced to the fleet commanders. Humanity will rejoin galactic civilization, willingly or not. 2 years had passed since the human withdrawal. The galaxy was dying. Wars raged on 300 worlds. Entire species faced extinction. Trade had collapsed. Civilization itself was crumbling. Some council members blamed Thexmore for the crisis. They said he should have treated humans better, listened to their concerns, valued their sacrifices. But Thexmore knew the truth. Humans were the problem. They had always been the problem. Too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized society. The galaxy would be better off once they were brought under control. Admiral Kestar of the combined fleet was the finest military mind in council space. She had studied human tactics for months, analyzing every battle they had ever fought. She was confident in victory. Human ships are individually superior to ours, she admitted during the final briefing. But they are outnumbered 15-1. No force in the galaxy can stand against this fleet. The massive armada jumped to hyperspace, heading for the edge of human territory. Their destination was the Sol system itself, Earth, the human homeworld. If humans wanted to hide behind their borders, the Council would bring the fight to their front door. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find desperate human defenders trying to protect their home. Instead, they found empty space and a single message beacon. Admiral Kestar activated the beacon. A human face appeared on her screen, a middle-aged Asian woman wearing a simple military uniform. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Sol Defense Force," the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "You are trespassing in human space with hostile intent. Turn around and leave immediately." Kestar opened a channel. "I am Admiral Kestar of the Galactic Council Fleet. We demand humanity's immediate surrender and return to Council authority." Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You demand? How interesting. Let me tell you what I demand, Admiral. I demand you remember what happened to the last fleet that came here uninvited." "That was a single hegemony force," Kestar replied. "This is the entire galaxy united against you." "Yes," Chen said. "This should be more fun." The transmission cut off. Kestar ordered her fleet to advance toward Earth. Long-range sensors showed no human ships, no defense stations, no obvious military installations. "Where are they?" asked Captain Vorthak of the hegemony contingent. "Hiding," Kestar said. "Preparing some desperate last stand around their homeworld." The fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. They passed the outer planets without encountering any resistance. Their sensors detected human settlements on Mars and several moons, but no military forces. "This is too easy," muttered Commander Yixtel of the Quinari ships. She was right. When the attack finally came, it came from everywhere at once. Human ships appeared around the Council fleet like ghosts, materializing from nothing. Not the swarm fighters they had faced before, but full-sized warships that had somehow hidden from the galaxy's best sensors. The human vessels were unlike anything in Council databases. They seemed to bend and flow like living things. Their hulls shifted color and shape as Kestar watched. Their weapons fired energy beams that changed frequency mid-flight. "All ships engage the enemy," Kessadar ordered. The Council fleet opened fire with thousands of weapons, space filled with enough destructive energy to sterilize planets. The human ships simply moved. They flowed around the attacks like water, their hulls rippling and changing to deflect what they could not avoid. Then the humans fired back. Human weapons were precise beyond belief. Each shot found gaps in shields, weak points in armor, critical systems that controlled entire ships. Council vessels began dying not from overwhelming firepower, but from surgical strikes that crippled them with minimal energy. "They're not trying to destroy us," reported a Vorthan captain. "They're studying us while they fight." The captain was right. Human ships would disable a Council vessel, scan it thoroughly, then adapt their weapons to be more effective against that type of ship. They were learning and evolving in real time. Worse, the humans fought with terrifying coordination. Every ship seemed to know what every other ship was doing. They moved like a single organism with thousands of bodies. The Council fleet, despite its size, fought like 15,000 separate units. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count them," reported Kestar's tactical officer. Kestar looked at her battle display. In 30 minutes, she had lost almost 4,000 ships. The humans had lost perhaps 50. At this rate, her entire fleet would be destroyed within hours. "All ships fall back to defensive formation," she ordered, but there was nowhere to fall back to. Human ships surrounded the Council fleet completely. They had appeared from every direction, cutting off all escape routes. "How did they hide so many ships?" demanded Captain Vorthak. "They didn't hide them," said a new voice on the communication channel. Admiral Chen had reappeared on their screens. "They built them, right here while you were flying toward us." "Impossible," Kestar said. "Watch," Chen replied. On the edge of the battle, space itself seemed to ripple. Asteroids and debris began flowing together, reshaping themselves into new human warships. The humans were building their fleet from the raw materials of their own solar system. "We had 2 years to prepare for this visit," Chen explained. "We knew you would come eventually, so we turned our entire system into a weapon factory." The battle continued for 3 days. The Council fleet fought bravely, but they were fighting an enemy that could replace losses faster than they could inflict them. Human ships that were destroyed simply reformed from nearby materials. On the 4th day, Admiral Kestar finally admitted defeat. Her fleet had been reduced to less than 9,000 ships and human forces were still growing. "We surrender," she broadcast to the human fleet. "No," Admiral Chen replied. "You retreat. Surrender implies we want to capture you. We don't. We want you to go home and tell everyone what happened here." "This changes nothing," Kestar said desperately. "The galaxy will never accept human dominance," Chen laughed. The sound was cold and empty. "Dominance? Admiral, you still don't understand. We don't want to dominate anyone. We just want to be left alone." "Then why fight so hard to win?" "Because," Chen said, "you taught us that violence only breeds violence. Today you learned why we were so good at it in the first place." The surviving Council ships were allowed to leave. As they fled toward the edge of human space, Admiral Chen sent one final message. "Tell the galaxy this. We tried being your peacekeepers. We tried being your protectors. We tried being your friends. None of that worked. So now we're going back to being what we were before you found us." "What's that?" Kestar asked. "Dangerous." The broken Council fleet limped home carrying news of their defeat. Across the galaxy, alien leaders received reports of the disaster with growing horror. The humans had not just won. They had made the combined military might of 47 species look like children playing with toys. Chancellor Thexmore sat in his office reading casualty reports and tried to understand what had gone wrong. The humans had been outnumbered 15-1. They should have been crushed. Instead, they had crushed the largest military force in galactic history. His aide entered with another report. "Chancellor, we're receiving messages from human space. What do they want?" Thexmore asked. "Nothing, sir. They're offering their services." Thexmore looked confused. "Services? Military consulting. Mercenary work. Security contracts. They're advertising themselves as the galaxy's new professional army." The aide handed him a data pad. On it was a simple message broadcast to every world in Council space. "The galaxy clearly needs military protection. Humanity is now available to provide that service to any species willing to pay our rates. Unlike our previous peacekeeping work, this will be a business relationship. You pay us, we solve your problems. No politics, no lectures about peace, no dying for free. Contact us if interested." Thexmore stared at the message in horror. The humans were not content to simply withdraw from galactic affairs. They were turning themselves into a weapon that anyone could hire. And after what had happened to the Council fleet, Thexmore suspected they would have many customers. Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council building for the first time in 5 years. The place looked the same, but everything else had changed. The aliens she passed in the hallways watched her with a mixture of fear and respect that had never been there before. She was older now, her hair gray and her face lined with wrinkles. But her eyes were still sharp and her step was still confident. Behind her walked a small group of human advisors, all wearing simple civilian clothes. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had come to witness this moment. At the center podium stood Chancellor Yixara of the Quinari, the new leader elected after Thexmore's resignation. "Ambassador Vasquez," Yixara said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you back." Elena took her place at the human delegation's seats. She looked around the chamber, noting the changes. Several species that had been powerful 5 years ago were barely represented now. Others had grown stronger. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. "Thank you, Chancellor," Elena replied. "Though I should note that I am no longer Ambassador Vasquez. My title now is Director of Human External Relations." The distinction was important. Ambassadors served the Council. Directors served their own people. Chancellor Yixara nodded. "Of course. We have prepared a formal apology for past mistakes, along with several treaty proposals for renewed cooperation." "I will listen to your apology," Elena said. "But first let me tell you about the new galaxy." She stood and activated the chamber's display system. A map of known space appeared, color-coded to show the current state of galactic civilization. Large sections were marked in red. "These are the dead zones," Elena explained. "Regions where warfare has made normal life impossible. Approximately 40% of formerly inhabited space. Yellow areas covered another large portion. These are the contested zones. Areas under dispute or suffering from piracy and lawlessness. Another 30%. Green zones were scattered and small. These are the stable regions. Places where local governments have managed to maintain order. 20% of galactic space." Elena paused to let the numbers sink in. In 5 years, the galaxy had lost 80% of its peaceful territory. "And these," she continued, highlighting several blue areas, "are regions under human protection contract. The blue zones were small but perfectly stable. No wars, no piracy, no chaos. Just peace maintained by human military contractors. The Valdric Republic hired human security forces to protect their trade routes," Elena explained. "Piracy in their territory has dropped to 0. The Nexus Federation contracted human peacekeepers to stop their civil war. Fighting ended within a month." Chancellor Yixara shifted uncomfortably. "These arrangements are temporary solutions, are they?" Elena asked. "The Valdric have renewed their contract 3 times. They say human protection is more reliable than Council peacekeeping ever was." Several alien representatives began speaking at once. Elena let them argue for a few minutes before continuing. "You want to know why human contractors succeed where Council peacekeepers failed?" she asked. "Because we learned something during our 50 years of service. We learned that peace through weakness doesn't work." Elena changed the display to show battle statistics. Human peacekeepers under Council authority averaged 47 casualties per conflict resolved. Human military contractors average 0 casualties per conflict resolved. How is that possible? Asked Senator Krixtal, one of the few hegemony representatives left. Because we don't ask nicely anymore, Elena replied. When someone threatens our clients, we don't form committees or write resolutions. We eliminate the threat completely. The chamber fell silent. Elena could see fear in alien eyes. They were remembering the Battle of Sol, where humanity had destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history. But enough about the past, Elena continued. You want humanity to rejoin galactic civilization. Let me tell you our terms. She activated a new display showing the proposed treaty. The alien representatives leaned forward to read it. First, humanity will maintain an embassy in council space, but we will not be subject to council authority. Our internal affairs are our own business. Several aliens started to object, but Elena continued. Second, any species that attacks human citizens or property will face immediate military retaliation. No trials, no committees, no warnings. We will treat acts of aggression as acts of war. The objections grew louder. Elena waited for quiet. Third, humanity will provide military and security services to any species willing to pay our rates. These contracts will be honored regardless of council politics. This is unacceptable, Senator Krixtal said. You're describing a mercenary empire, not civilized cooperation. Elena smiled. It was the same cold expression she had worn when leaving this chamber 5 years ago. Senator, your civilization tried to turn us into unpaid mercenaries for 50 years. We bled and died while you debated our worth. Now we're offering to be paid mercenaries with guaranteed results. The galaxy needs peace, not more violence, pleaded Representative Thekvon of the Altarians. The galaxy has peace, Elena replied. In every region where humans provide security. The violence is in regions still governed by council resolutions and strongly worded letters. Chancellor Yixara looked at her carefully prepared apology speech, then set it aside. Director Vasquez, what do you really want from us? Elena's expression softened slightly. For the first time, she looked like the woman who had once believed in galactic cooperation. We want to be partners, not servants, she said. We want to trade with you, learn from you, share the galaxy with you. But we will never again die for people who consider our lives worthless. And if we refuse your terms? Elena shrugged. Then we continue as we are. Humanity has learned to live without the galaxy. The question is whether the galaxy can live without humanity. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species demanded that humans be forced to accept council authority. Others argued for acceptance of the human terms. A few suggested compromise solutions. Elena sat back down and waited. She had learned patience during her years of diplomatic service. More importantly, she had learned to recognize when she held the strongest position at the negotiating table. After 2 hours of argument, Chancellor Yixara called for order. We will recess to consider the human proposal, she announced. Take your time, Elena said. But remember, every day you spend debating, more beings die in wars that human contractors could stop in hours. The council recessed for 3 days. During that time, Elena toured the capital city. She saw the changes that 5 years of galactic chaos had brought. Fewer tourists, more security guards, buildings designed like fortresses instead of art galleries. The galaxy had become a harder place. Whether that was good or bad depended on your perspective. On the 3rd day, the council reconvened. Chancellor Yixara looked tired but determined. The Galactic Council accepts humanity's terms, she announced. With one addition, we request that human military contractors be available for humanitarian missions at reduced rates. Elena considered this. Humanitarian missions only. No peacekeeping, no nation building, no referee work between species that want to kill each other. Agreed. Elena stood and walked to the podium. She looked out at the assembled representatives, many of whom had watched her leave this same chamber 5 years ago. 50 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Council believing in a dream of universal peace, she said. We discovered that peace cannot be built on the graves of those who died defending it. Today, we rejoin galactic civilization with a different understanding. Peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of consequences for those who choose violence. We will trade with you, work with you, even fight alongside you when necessary. But we will never again sacrifice ourselves for leaders who mistake weakness for wisdom. Elena signed the treaty documents. Chancellor Yixara signed as well. Around the chamber, Representatives from 200 species watched as humanity officially returned to galactic civilization. But it was a different humanity than had left. Harder, colder, more dangerous. They had learned to be professionals instead of idealists. They had learned to charge for their protection instead of giving it away free. Most importantly, they had learned that the galaxy respected strength more than sacrifice. As Elena left the council building, she passed a memorial wall listing beings who had died in the service of galactic peace. Thousands of names covered the wall, and most of them were human. She stopped and read a few names. Friends, colleagues, soldiers who had believed they were building something better. Their sacrifice had not been meaningless, but it had taught the wrong lesson. They had died believing that giving their lives for others would make the galaxy peaceful. Instead, their deaths had simply made the galaxy dependent on human blood. Now the galaxy was learning a harder truth. Peace had a price, and that price was no longer paid exclusively by humans. Elena walked into the sunlight and smiled. It had taken 5 years, but the galaxy was finally growing up, and humanity was no longer its babysitter.